Before I get to this gentleman on the line here, I just want to point out the response. I don't think it's just me that human beings have to stuff like this. Miss Mary sticks her head in the studio and says, "The state trooper wants to talk to you." And right away, I'm not doing anything wrong here. But immediately I think that I'm in trouble for something. And Officer Rick, I assume that you would be arresting me the moment the show was over. You would at least allow me to finish the show.
well, we'll give you that.
Okay. But there's a thing about when someone, like, I bet when you walk into a room in your uniform, there are some people who have never done anything ever in their life, but they naturally assume they're in trouble.
Well, it happens,
Yeah.
certainly. But most of the people, they're just polite and courteous,
sure.
and we're that way back. And,
Okay.
It goes pretty well. But, yes, your license plate is on file with most of them, so
Thanks for that. I appreciate it. That's not going to cause me to be looking in my rear view the whole time I'm driving. I even had that yesterday. I was driving across town, and a police officer just made a right turn and pulled up behind me. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not speeding. My license plate's current. But the whole time he's behind me. He's right behind me. So there's always that. Okay, you're calling because I was talking with Frank about a story. Wyoming troopers have according to this story, about 29% more tickets of people doing more than 100 miles an hour, and that especially took place in the year 2020. So I don't know about now, but my assumption was there was less traffic on the road, so people were going faster. But what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I guess from my experience out here on the road, and I've been doing this for about 15 years now, is it seems like we're getting somewhat of an indifference to how people drive on the roadway by a lot of folks, unfortunately, where you almost get the feeling like they just feel like they own the road and they can do whatever they want. And I'll give you a good example. I caught a truck driver last year that was coming down the summit into Laramie. And this was one of the more mortifying speeds that I have ever witnessed, even though I've witnessed much higher speeds. This semi-truck was going 103 miles an hour down the summit. And, that was kind of, maybe a mile down into the hill, so he had a lot more downhill to go. And I got him stopped, and I asked him, I said, why so fast, And he said, I can go however fast I want to as long as you don't catch me. And as I was going through his paperwork, I happened to come across a citation in New Mexico that showed that he actually did the same exact speed down there, within the last week. And so as a consequence, I actually physically arrested that driver for not only the speed but reckless driving, because I considered that was way out of bounds, considering an 80,000 projectile going that fast down a hill, But likewise, I made a stop yesterday where I was had checked the speed on two vehicles that were following each other. They were both out of Oregon. They were actually traveling together, and they were doing 97 miles per hour on US 287. Now, I have an unmarked patrol vehicle myself, and they didn't realize that I was trying to catch up with them. And as I was trying to catch up with them, as things progressed on the road, got around a couple other drivers, and I had to contend with that because of oncoming traffic. But as I closed the gap on him, I watched the first vehicle pass a car, and he had enough time to do it. But the person following him at the same speed, the 97 miles an hour, did not have enough room to do it as an approaching semi was coming. And I'll be honest, I kind of cringed a little, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get this on camera. As that second driver just whipped around this passenger car and cut it so close that the semi truck going the opposite direction had to grab the shoulder, and they missed a head-on collision by, I would guess, say 50 feet or so. And he wasn't willing to break his speed or consider anything other than what's going on in his life, and that he just had to catch up with his friend, I assume. And he put everybody in danger, the guy that he passed, the semi truck driver, and himself, and we're seeing a lot more of these close calls between a combination of speed and people not willing to back off and to get around somebody and taking the chance that they can make it without going head on with somebody. We're seeing a lot more of that. The other thing that I'm witnessing out here on the road is, as we evolve with our speed limit changes here, particularly in Albany County, where, for example, US 287, most of it was raised to 70 miles per hour, as a lot of our state highways have. The common thing that I see is people going at least 80 miles per hour, if not greater. In fact, for me, it's getting to be routine on 287 to stop people anywhere from 85 to perhaps a high of about 110 miles per hour on that road. It seems like it's gone up as the speed limit has gone up. Likewise, on Interstate 80, we had a change to 80 miles per hour more or less between Laramie and almost to Arlington. And so now I see a lot of 90 mile per hour plus speeds since we changed to the 80. So what seems to be common is that people seem to assume that whatever the speed limit is, if they add 10 to it, they probably won't get stopped. But with our agency, that actually doesn't hold water. It's just a matter of who we happen to get to. We're actually highly recommended within our own agency to issue citations at 6 and over. Is kind of what our policy is. But what I notice is when I travel into other states, our surrounding states, and Colorado in particular, it's interesting to me. I probably stop in my area, I would say 7-1 Colorado people versus Wyoming people, and so what I mean by that is there's a lot more Colorado traffic coming into our area per how many Wyoming drivers are out there. And what's interesting is, at least in my area, the majority of Wyoming drivers actually drive the speed limit or much closer to it than people that come from our neighboring states. And I don't know if that's because there's so much traffic down in those states that it's hard for them to keep up with it, so 10 over is kind of a norm. People actually, in particular from Colorado, seem to be surprised that I stop them when they're doing 10 or more miles per hour over the speed limit.
See, and so not to advocate anything, but I've always heard, even when I was a teenager, if you're going 5 over, as long as you're doing it, safely, police don't really care that much. That's usually what I hear. And I grew up like in the South, Florida, North Carolina, states like that.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a little bit of truth to that, unfortunately. But I think part of it is police officers have to make decisions out there of what are you going to do? You have so many high rollers out there. It's difficult to stop everybody, basically.
Well, now, that leads me to my question, because I have had people say to me, well, yeah, I mean, I drive like a bat out of hell, but that's because Wyoming simply doesn't have enough state troopers out there to cover everywhere, and they know where you are not. So they will go ahead and take advantage of that because they know you're not out there covering that area.
Well, I think sometimes that may happen, but we try to remain unpredictable out here with our law enforcement, since there are, as you said, so few of us. And we try to hit all of our highways on a daily basis within our respective divisions or districts. So you just never know when you're going to run into us. For me, it's since I'm driving an unmarked vehicle, you would be amazed how many people pass me and go right by me. You can actually read some graphics on mine that I am a state trooper, but it doesn't seem to faze them, and so I end up having to stop them.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we get tons of excuses of speeding, but I think the one that I find interesting is it's not uncommon for me to stop somebody from a neighboring state that's doing 90 miles per hour. And they said, well, I didn't know what the speed limit was. And I don't.
Well, it's not 90.
I don't get cute with people. Yeah, I don't get cute with people, but I often want to say to them, I've been in your state. I've never seen it. Do you have any roads that are, say, 90 miles per hour?
Yeah.
And but it's true, and of course they blame hills for their speed. The excuses are numerous. Some are kind of funny. I had one lady tell me that the reason she was speeding was that her cat had to pee.
So the cat told her that.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not like there's not plenty of sand off on the side of the road the cat could use, but all right.
Right. But something that we're doing this week, I thought you might be interested in, and your listeners might be interested in. Captain Wagner had put this out. We're doing a Western States Traffic Safety Speed Initiative, which involves 12 of our neighboring states, basically. So there's a high emphasis this week on speeding and trying to get people to slow down. So troopers are out there working overtime and different things, trying to hit this very heavily for this deal. But I think the thing that I'm seeing, and I think people have to understand, is that speeding is just one factor in a lot of our crashes and so forth that we deal with. But when you combine all the other things that people seem to be doing these days with speed, such as distracted driving, it just complicates it, makes it even more dangerous, because every time you increase your speed, that distance that you're closing on something, or the repercussions of if you lose control, are going to be far greater the higher your speed is.
Sure. In other words, it doesn't matter how fast your reflexes are. You're dealing with the laws of physics here. So you may be fast on the brake, but you can't compensate for the laws of physics when you're going that fast. And a good thing to do, and I know a lot of people are going to have a problem with doing this, but when I get in my vehicle, I put the cell phone away. And in fact, my cell phone has a message on it. If somebody calls me, it tells them, I'm sorry, I'm driving right now. I'll get back to them later.
Right.
That way I can pay attention to what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I applaud you for that. I wish that everybody would do that. But, I think the thing that people forget, and they just don't realize, is that you really don't get somewhere all that much faster in the end game by speeding. And, as I investigate crashes, and particularly the ones where people are severely injured or killed, it always runs through my mind is, what was so important to you that you made these poor choices, and now I've got to go tell your family member that you're not coming home today? What was so important?
Yeah.
Couldn't you take 5 more minutes out of your life and just kind of pay attention, obey the laws, and get there safely? And I don't know. I think if people saw things from our perspective, it would be they probably wouldn't need us. Frankly.
That's right. You're the guy out there cleaning up the mess, so you do have an interesting perspective. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Officer Rick, is I'm going to take this call, which I've recorded, and I'm going to make a post out of it, and people are going to be able to hear the audio. So besides the people who are listening today, that's going to be shared out there. And if you check the Wake Up Wyoming website tomorrow, you can go ahead and take this, which is a fantastic phone call, and I really thank you for doing this. You can go ahead and share that along with all the other state troopers to hopefully get this out there across Wyoming, because, I get a little annoyed. I don't mind if someone passes me, but when they pass me like a nutball, they're putting me in danger, and that I don't like either.
They are, Glenn. You're absolutely right, and we appreciate your words and how you view all the things. I mean, I've listened to you for a long time, and you're a very sensible individual. And your message, your willingness to help get these messages out is so helpful. I mean, I think you reach a lot more people than I ever will, and I appreciate you very much for it.
Well,
Thank you.
By the way, my sister in Lake Wales, Florida, is listening right now, and the fact that you just called me responsible and sensible, she is laughing. Thank you for calling, Rick. I'm up against the clock. I got to run. That was a brilliant call, and I really appreciate what you do out there. Drive safe, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, 9:22. Wake up, Wyoming.
Welcome to the WyoPreps Daily Radio Report, powered by the WyoPreps mobile app. I'm David Settle. This Tuesday report comes your way thanks to Enroll Wyoming and Wyoming Liberty Group. In case you missed it over the